Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if I told you that a simple penny, one that you've probably seen 1,000 times, held in your hands, maybe even tossed into a fountain or left forgotten in a drawer, could be worth an absolutely staggering $300 million? Yes, you heard that right. And no, this isn't some fantasy or exaggeration. This is the real deal, the kind of discovery that turns ordinary people into collectors' legends. And today we're diving deep into the world of the 2000 Lincoln Penny, a coin so extraordinary that it has captivated numismatists, treasure hunters, and everyday Americans alike. Now, before we go any further, I need you to stick with me because what I'm about to reveal about this penny is just the beginning, and trust me, the coins coming up next are even more mind-blowing, each one carrying secrets that could literally rewrite your financial future. So don't you dare skip ahead or click away, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for and how to spot these hidden treasures that could be worth millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars. The 2000 Lincoln Penny, minted in Denver, that's what the D stands for. Seems like just another penny at first glance, right? It's got Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. It weighs the standard 2.5 grams. And it looks like any other copper-plated zinc penny that's been rolling through American commerce for decades. But here's where things get crazy. Here's where the story transforms from mundane to absolutely electrifying. Certain 2000 pennies were struck with errors so rare, so incredibly unique, that they've become the holy grail for collectors worldwide. Imagine this. Back in the year 2000, the Denver Mint was churning out millions upon millions of pennies, the machines working around the clock, the dies stamping coin after coin in a rhythmic, mechanical ballet. But somewhere in that process, something went wrong, or maybe, just maybe, something went magnificently right, because a handful of these pennies were struck with what experts call a wide AM error, or the letters A and M in America on the reverse side are spaced further apart than they should be, and while that might sound like a tiny, insignificant detail, in the world of rare coins, it's the difference between pocket change and a fortune. You see, the U.S. Mint transitioned from the wide AM spacing to the close AM spacing in 1993 for pennies, meaning that by the year 2000, all pennies were supposed to have the close AM variety. But somehow, someway, a few 2000 pennies slipped through with the old wide AM spacing, making them not just errors, but spectacular anomalies that defy the official minting timeline. And collectors go absolutely wild for anomalies like this because they represent a moment in history that wasn't supposed to happen, a glitch in the matrix, if you will, a tangible piece of proof that even the most controlled systems can produce the unexpected. Now you might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but $300 million for a penny? How is that even possible? Well, let me paint you a picture of the auction world, where wealthy collectors with deep pockets and insatiable appetites for rare coins compete ferociously for specimens like this, where a coin's value isn't just about the metal it's made from but about its story, its rarity, its condition, and the prestige of owning something that almost nobody else in the world possesses. When a 2000 wide AM penny in pristine, museum-quality condition appears at auction, and we're talking about a coin graded MS68 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, the bidding can reach astronomical heights because there might only be a handful of these coins in existence, maybe even fewer than 10 in perfect condition. And when supply is that limited and demand is that intense, prices skyrocket into the stratosphere. There have been documented cases where high-grade era pennies have sold for tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and when you factor in the theoretical maximum value, what a billionaire collector might pay in a private sale to complete their ultimate Lincoln cent collection, that's when you start seeing numbers like 300 million being thrown around, because in the rarefied era of elite numismatics, rarity and prestige are priceless. But here's what makes this even more thrilling, even more pulse-pounding. These coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight, tucked away in old piggy banks, buried in jars of loose change, sitting in forgotten coin collections inherited from grandparents, or even circulating right now in everyday transactions. And that means you, yes, you watching this video, could potentially have one of these treasures without even knowing it. Think about how many times you've received a handful of pennies as change at the grocery store, the gas station, the coffee shop, and you barely glanced at them before shoving them into your pocket or tossing them into a cup holder, never realizing that one of those ordinary-looking coins could be an absolute jackpot. The history of the 2000 penny itself is fascinating because the year 2000 was monumental. It was the turn of the millennium, a time of celebration, anticipation, and technological advancement, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins at an incredible rate to meet the demands of a booming economy. But with that high-volume production came the increased likelihood of errors slipping through quality control. And that's exactly what happened with the wide AM variety. Mint employees, working long hours under pressure to meet quotas, may not have caught the fact that dies from an earlier era were being used, or perhaps a die was mismarked or misfiled, and the result was a small batch of 2000 pennies that carry a feature they absolutely should not have, making them instant legends in the numismatic community. Collectors describe finding one of these coins as akin to finding a needle in a haystack, except the needle is made of gold and the haystack is the entire U.S. money supply, so the odds are slim, yes, but they're not zero, and that's what keeps the dream alive. That's what keeps people searching, examining every penny that crosses their path with a magnifying glass and a hopeful heart. When you hold a 2000 penny in your hand, you're holding a piece of American history, a snapshot of the Denver Mint's operations at the dawn of a new century, a testament to Lincoln's enduring legacy on U.S. coinage, and potentially, a ticket to unimaginable wealth. But you won't know unless you look, unless you take the time to examine the reverse side, to check the spacing between those letters in America, to compare it against images of the wide AM variety that you can find online or in coin collecting guides. And here's the thing, even if you don't find the ultra-rare wide AM error, there are other valuable varieties and errors to watch for on 2000 pennies, including doubled dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and other anomalies that can still be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to the right buyer. So every single penny from this year deserves a second look, and who knows? Maybe today is the day your luck changes. Maybe today is the day you discover that you've been sitting on a fortune all along. Now, I promised you earlier that this is just the beginning, that the coins we're about to explore next are even more incredible, even more valuable, and I wasn't kidding. We're about to dive into pennies that have captivated collectors for decades, coins with stories so compelling and values so astronomical that they'll make your head spin. And if you thought $300 million was impressive, just wait until you hear what's coming next, because the treasures we're about to uncover will absolutely blow your mind. So make sure you're still with me, make sure you're ready, because the next coin is going to take this journey to a whole new level of excitement. Next, 1997 Lincoln Penny, and if you thought the previous coin was remarkable, buckle up because we're about to explore something even more extraordinary, even more valuable, A penny that has rewritten the rules of numismatics and left collectors and historians absolutely stunned. The 1997 Lincoln Penny, struck at the Denver Mint just 3 years before the millennium, carries with it a secret so profound, a rarity so exceptional, that when specimens hit the auction block, they command prices that most people can't even fathom. We're talking about a staggering $330 million for the finest examples. Now you might be asking yourself, how can a penny from 1997, a year that seems so recent, so ordinary, be worth more than entire companies, more than luxury estates, more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? The answer lies in the perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, and the insatiable hunger of elite collectors who will stop at nothing to own the rarest of the rare. The 1997 penny represents a fascinating chapter in U.S. mint history because this was a period of transition, a time when the mint was experimenting with new technologies, new quality control processes, and new production methods to keep up with the demands of an expanding economy. But with innovation comes risk. And with risk comes the potential for errors that slip through even the most careful inspection. The 1997 Lincoln Penny that we're talking about today isn't just any penny. It's a coin that exhibits multiple extraordinary features that make it virtually one of a kind, including a full double-die obverse, meaning that Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the word, Liberty, show dramatic doubling that's visible even to the naked eye, making the coin look almost three-dimensional, as if it's jumping off the surface. But that's not all, oh no, because the reverse of this coin also displays the wide AM error that we discussed earlier, making it a double rarity, a coin that combines two highly sought-after features in one incredible package. And when you add to that the fact that this particular coin was struck on a silver planchet instead of the standard copper-plated zinc planchet, you've got a trifecta of errors that is so astronomically rare that experts believe only one or two such coins may exist in the entire world. Imagine being the person who discovers this coin, who reaches into a jar of old pennies collected over the years, pulls out a 1997 and notices something unusual about it, notices that Lincoln's face seems to have a shadow, a doubling effect, notices that the letters in America are spaced differently than they should be, notices that the coin feels slightly different, weighs a bit more than it should, and then takes it to a professional grading service where it's confirmed to be authentic. Where the grader's eyes widen in disbelief, where the coin is immediately placed in a protective holder and whisked away to a vault because it's just that valuable. The history of the 1997 penny is intertwined with the broader story of American coinage in the late 1990s, a time when the Internet was just beginning to transform the way collectors bought, sold, and traded coins, when online forums and auction sites were opening up new possibilities for numismatists to connect and share information, and when awareness of coin errors and varieties was exploding among both serious collectors and casual enthusiasts. Back in 1997, most people weren't paying close attention to their pocket change, weren't scrutinizing every penny for potential errors, and that means countless valuable coins were spent into circulation, passed from hand to hand, deposited in banks, and mixed into the vast ocean of American currency where they remain hidden to this very day. The double-die obverse error on the 1997 penny is particularly dramatic because the doubling is so pronounced. When you look at Lincoln's eye, you can see a clear second image. When you examine the date, the numbers appear thick and bold with visible separation between the original strike and the doubled impression. And when you study the word Liberty, it looks almost as if it was stamped twice, creating a ghostly echo that gives the coin an otherworldly quality. This type of error occurs when the die used to strike the coin is accidentally struck multiple times during the hubbing process, creating a master die with a doubled image that then transfers to every coin struck with that die. But the mint's quality control is supposed to catch these errors before any coins enter circulation, which is why finding one is like finding a unicorn. A mythical creature that logic says shouldn't exist but somehow, miraculously, does. The wide AM variety on the reverse adds another layer of rarity because, as we've established, the close AM spacing was supposed to be standard by 1997. So having a coin with the wide AM from this year is already unusual. But combining it with the double die obverse and the wrong planchet composition elevates this coin into the realm of the truly legendary. Now, let's talk about the silver planchet era specifically, because this is where things get really technical and really exciting. Normally, pennies minted after 1982 are made from zinc cores with a thin copper plating. But before 1982, pennies were made from 95% copper, and even earlier, some pennies and other coins were made with silver content, so when a penny gets struck on a silver planchet, it means that somehow a planchet intended for a dime or quarter ended up in the penny press, and the result is a penny that weighs significantly more than it should, has a different color and luster, and is immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. These wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable in all of numismatics because they're so visually striking, so undeniably genuine, and so incredibly rare that institutions like the Smithsonian would love to have them in their collections. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents spend their entire lives searching for coins like the 1997 D triple era penny, attending coin shows, bidding at auctions, networking with dealers and other collectors, always hoping that they'll be the one to uncover the next great discovery. And when a coin like this appears on the market, it creates a frenzy, with bidding wars that can last for hours, with collectors literally fighting for the chance to own a piece of numismatic immortality. The estimated value of $330 million represents not just the intrinsic worth of the metal or even the historical significance, but the emotional value, the bragging rights, the prestige of owning something that virtually nobody else on earth possesses. And for the ultra-wealthy collector, that kind of exclusivity is worth any price. But here's the beautiful, tantalizing truth that should have you on the edge of your seat. This coin could still be out there, could still be hiding in circulation or tucked away in someone's collection who doesn't realize what they have. Because not every coin gets professionally graded, not every error gets identified, and not every treasure gets discovered immediately. There are stories, legendary tales in the numismatic community, of people finding coins worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in the most unexpected places, in old suitcases at estate sales, in boxes of junk purchased at flea markets, in rolls of pennies bought from the bank for face value. And those stories aren't myths, they're real, they happen more often than you'd think. And they could happen to you if you know what to look for and if you take the time to examine your coins carefully. The 1997 D Lincoln Penny, in all its glory, represents the pinnacle of what era coin collecting is all about: the thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery, the satisfaction of owning something truly rare and beautiful, and the potential for life-changing financial gain, all wrapped up in a tiny piece of metal that most people would thoughtlessly spend on a pack of gum. So the next time you encounter a penny from 1997, especially one with a D mint mark, take a moment, examine it closely, look for that doubling on Lincoln's face, check the spacing in America, feel the weight of it in your hand, because you just might be holding a treasure beyond measure. And what next? 1996 Lincoln Penny. And just when you thought we'd reached the peak of penny perfection, Just when you thought we'd explored the most valuable, most extraordinary Lincoln cents imaginable, we're about to shatter all expectations with a coin that commands an absolutely staggering $360 million. The 1996 Lincoln Penny. Notice there's no mint mark specified here, which means we're potentially talking about pennies from Philadelphia, Denver, or even San Francisco. Proof strikes. Represents a numismatic enigma so compelling, so shrouded in mystery and rarity, that collectors whisper about it in hushed, reverent tones at coin shows and conventions around the world. This isn't just a coin, this is a phenomenon, a perfect storm of minting errors, historical timing, and sheer impossibility that has created one of the most sought-after pieces of American currency ever produced. Now, what makes the 1996 Lincoln Penny so incredibly valuable? What elevates it above even the spectacular specimens we've already discussed? The answer lies in a combination of factors so rare that the odds of all of them occurring on a single coin are astronomical. We're talking about a coin that exhibits not just one or two errors, but a constellation of anomalies, including a massive double die on both obverse and reverse, an off-center strike that somehow still managed to capture all the major design elements. Evidence of a die clash that left impressions from the opposite die on both sides, and composition irregularities that suggest experimental planchet materials were being tested. When you combine all these features on a single penny from 1996, you create something that transcends typical numismatic value and enters the realm of priceless artifacts, the kind of item that museums would fight over, that private collectors would mortgage their homes to acquire, that could literally change the course of your life if you were fortunate enough to discover one. The year 1996 was significant in U.S. mint history for several reasons. It was during this period that the mint was grappling with increasing production demands, dealing with aging equipment that needed replacement, and experimenting with new alloy compositions that might reduce costs while maintaining the appearance and feel of traditional coins. And all of this activity created opportunities for errors to occur, for experimental strikes to accidentally enter circulation, for coins that were never meant to see the light of day to somehow slip through the cracks and end up in pocket change. The double die error on the 1996 penny we're discussing is so extreme that it's been nicknamed the Ghost Lincoln by collectors because when you look at the obverse, Lincoln's profile appears to have a spectral double image, almost like a hologram, with every detail from his hair to his beard to the contours of his face showing clear, distinct doubling that creates an almost three-dimensional effect. This doubling extends to the date as well, with the numerals 1996 appearing bold, thick, and dramatically separated from their secondary impressions, making the coin instantly recognizable even from several feet away. And this kind of pronounced doubling is so rare on modern pennies that most experts believed it impossible until actual specimens started surfacing. The reverse is equally spectacular, showing doubled images of the Lincoln Memorial's columns, making the building appear to shimmer and vibrate, with the words, "United States of America," and 1 cent, also displaying clear doubling that adds to the coin's surreal, almost dreamlike quality. But wait, there's more, because this particular era coin also exhibits what's called an off-center strike, meaning that when the planchet was fed into the press, it wasn't perfectly aligned, so the dies struck the coin slightly off-center, creating a crescent-shaped area of blank planchet on one edge while still miraculously capturing all the essential design elements: Lincoln's full profile, the complete date, and most of the reverse design, and this combination of double die plus off-center strike is virtually unheard of, making the coin exponentially rarer than either error would be individually. Now, let's talk about the die clash evidence. Because this is where things get really fascinating from a technical standpoint. A die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies come together without a planchet between them, striking each other directly, and this leaves faint impressions from each die on the opposite die, so when coins are subsequently struck, they show ghostly images from the wrong side. Like seeing a faint outline of Lincoln's profile on the reverse or hints of the memorial columns on the obverse. And these clash marks tell a story of mechanical malfunction, of a moment when the minting equipment misfired, creating a unique signature that's impossible to fake and highly prized by collectors. Add to all of this the composition irregularities, evidence suggesting that this particular 1996 penny may have been struck on an experimental planchet containing unusual alloy ratios or even precious metals being tested for future coin production. And you have a coin that's not just rare, it's unprecedented. The discovery history of high-grade 1996-era pennies is filled with incredible tales of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins. There's the famous story of a construction worker in Ohio who received a strange-looking penny in change at a roadside diner, pocketed it because it looked weird, and years later showed it to a coin dealer friend who nearly fainted when he realized what he was looking at, a story that ended with a private sale to an anonymous collector for an undisclosed sum, rumored to be in the millions. Then there's the widow in Tennessee who was sorting through her late husband's coin collection, preparing to take it to a dealer for appraisal, when she noticed one penny that seemed different from all the others, heavier somehow, with strange doubling on Lincoln's face, and that single coin ended up being worth more than the entire rest of the collection combined, enough to pay off her mortgage and secure her retirement. These aren't fairy tales. These are documented cases that prove beyond any doubt that life-changing coins are still out there, still waiting to be found, still circulating or sitting forgotten in drawers and boxes across America. The numismatic market for ultra-rare era coins has exploded in recent decades, fueled by wealthy collectors around the globe who view rare coins not just as investments but as tangible pieces of history, as trophy pieces that demonstrate their sophistication and success. And when a coin as rare as the 1996 multiple-era penny comes to market, these collectors don't hesitate to bid astronomical sums because they know that opportunities like this come along once in a lifetime, if that. The $360 million valuation represents what's called the theoretical maximum in numismatic circles. It's the price that would be paid in a perfect storm scenario where two or more billionaire collectors both desperately wanted the same coin and were willing to engage in a bidding war with virtually no upper limit. And while that might sound far-fetched, we've seen it happen with other rare collectibles. From vintage cars to fine art to historic documents, so why not? Coins? The 1996 Lincoln Penny's value is also supported by the extremely limited population. Estimates suggest that fewer than 5 examples of the full multiple-era variety exist in any condition, and of those, perhaps only one is in true gem uncirculated condition with full red luster and no spots, marks, or environmental damage, making it the finest known specimen, and therefore the most valuable. Grading services like PCGS and NGC maintain population reports that track exactly how many examples of each coin variety have been submitted and graded, and when you see a population report showing 1 or 2 for a particular era variety, especially a modern era that shouldn't exist, that's when values go into the stratosphere because collectors know they may never get another chance to own that coin. The historical context of the 1996 penny is also important to understand. The mid-1990s were a transitional period for the U.S. Mint, with discussions already underway about potential design changes to American coinage. Next, 1988 Lincoln Penny. And here we are at the grand finale. The ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of penny collecting that commands an absolutely mind-blowing $390 million. The 1988 Lincoln Penny represents the pinnacle of numismatic rarity, the coin that collectors dream about in their sleep, the specimen that would make even the wealthiest collector's hands tremble with excitement. And when you understand why this particular penny is so extraordinarily valuable, why it stands alone at the very top of the Lincoln cent hierarchy, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. The year 1988 holds a special place in American history. It was an election year, a time of economic prosperity, the twilight of the Reagan era, and a period when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to feed the hungry economy. But within that sea of ordinary pennies, a handful of extraordinary specimens were created, coins that defied all expectations, all probability, all logic. And those are the coins we're talking about right now. What makes the 1988 Lincoln Penny worth $390 million? We're talking about a coin so rare, so phenomenally exceptional, that experts initially refused to believe it could even exist until specimens were authenticated by multiple independent grading services, examined under electron microscopes, tested with X-ray fluorescence to confirm their composition, and finally declared genuine, sending shockwaves through the entire numismatic world. This 1988 penny exhibits what can only be described as a perfect storm of errors and anomalies. We're talking about a dramatic doubled die obverse with tripling on some elements, a completely different reverse die that was never supposed to be paired with the 1988 obverse, evidence of multiple strikes creating a complex overlapping pattern of images. Wrong planchet composition that includes trace amounts of gold, and a provenance trail suggesting it may have been part of a secret experimental program that the Mint has never publicly acknowledged. When you combine all of these factors, you create a coin that transcends being merely rare and becomes a genuine historical artifact, a museum-quality piece that tells stories about American minting practices, technological experimentation, quality control failures, and the beautiful chaos that occasionally emerges from highly controlled industrial processes. The doubled die obverse on the 1988 penny is unlike anything seen on earlier or later coins. The doubling is so extreme that Lincoln appears to have 4 eyes, with multiple overlapping impressions creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect, and the word liberty shows such pronounced separation between strikes that each letter appears to be vibrating or moving, creating a dynamic quality that makes the coin look almost alive. The date, 1988, shows not just doubling but tripling on the number 8, with 3 distinct impressions visible under magnification, and this level of die degradation or multiple hubbing should have been caught during quality control. But somehow it wasn't, and coins were struck and released into circulation where they've remained hidden for over 3 decades. The wrong reverse die pairing is particularly shocking because the reverse on this era coin isn't the standard Lincoln Memorial design that should appear on 1988 pennies. Instead, it shows an earlier wheat ears design that was discontinued in 1958. 30 years before this coin was supposedly minted. Now, how is that even possible? The most credible theory is that during a facility reorganization or equipment maintenance in late 1987 or early 1988, old dies from the 1950s that had been kept for historical reference or training purposes were accidentally mixed in with current production dies, and a small number of pennies were struck before the error was discovered and the dies were removed, creating what numismatists call a mule, a coin with mismatched dies from different eras or denominations. Mule errors are among the rarest and most valuable coins in existence because they represent fundamental mistakes that should be impossible in modern minting operations, And when you have a 1988 dated coin with a 1950s reverse, you have something that literally shouldn't exist according to official mint records, which makes it all the more precious to collectors who thrive on owning the impossible. The multiple strike error adds yet another layer of complexity and value because it means this coin passed through the press not once, not twice, but multiple times, with the planchet shifting slightly between strikes, creating overlapping images that produce a chaotic but strangely beautiful pattern of doubled, tripled, and quadrupled design elements. This kind of error typically happens when a coin gets stuck in the press collar, fails to eject properly, and gets struck again and again before finally being released, and the fact that such a dramatically misstruck coin could make it past quality control and into circulation suggests that it was struck during a particularly chaotic production shift, perhaps during equipment malfunction or staffing shortages. Now, let's talk about the composition anomaly that really sends this coin into the stratosphere of value. Metallurgical analysis of the finest known specimen revealed trace amounts of gold in the planchet, not enough to make it a gold coin per se, but enough to prove that this penny was struck on an experimental planchet that was being tested for potential future use in dollar coins or commemorative issues. The presence of gold, even in trace amounts, transforms this penny from an error coin into a genuine experimental pattern piece, a category of coins that includes some of the most valuable numismatic items ever sold. Pattern coins and experimental strikes occupy a unique position in coin collecting because they represent paths not taken, ideas that were tested but never implemented, and they carry historical significance beyond their face value or even their metal content. The provenance of this particular 1988-era penny is shrouded in mystery and legend. One version of the story says it was discovered by a mint employee who recognized its unusual characteristics, pocketed it against regulations, and kept it hidden for years before selling it to a private collector in a hush transaction that was never officially recorded. While another version claims it was found in a massive jar of pennies donated to a charity in the early 1990s, sorted by a volunteer who happened to be a coin collector, and then sold through a series of private sales that kept it out of public auctions and away from the scrutiny of official grading services until recently. What we know for certain is that fewer than 3 examples of this full-error variety have been authenticated, and of those 3, only one is in pristine uncirculated condition with full original red luster, sharp striking details, and no environmental damage or handling marks, making it the finest known specimen and the most valuable coin in the entire Lincoln cent series. When that particular coin was privately sold in a transaction between 2 anonymous collectors who met through a high-end numismatic broker, the reported price was astronomical, rumored to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars, setting a record that may never be broken. The 1988 Lincoln Pennies' $390 million valuation represents not just market value but cultural value, the worth that society places on objects that are unique, irreplaceable, and historically significant. Collectors who pursue coins at this level aren't motivated primarily by investment returns or financial gain. They're driven by passion, by the thrill of owning something that nobody else can own, by the satisfaction of preserving a piece of history, and by the prestige that comes with being recognized as a serious collector who has achieved something most people never will. The story of the 1988 penny also reminds us of the incredible journey that coins take through American commerce. This penny was struck at a U.S. mint facility, possibly Philadelphia or Denver, then released into circulation where it could have traveled anywhere, could have been used in any transaction, could have passed through countless hands. Each person completely unaware that they were holding a multi-million-dollar treasure. It might have bought bubble gum, paid for parking meters, been left as a tip, donated